The chief surgeon's hand twisted into her hair under the blazing surgical lights, yanking her head back in front of a room full of witnesses, and in that frozen second, the entire emergency room seemed to forget how to breathe. The beeping monitors, the rush of footsteps, the metallic smell of antiseptic all blurred together as humiliation, shock, and quiet rage collided in one fragile human heart. Everyone saw it, everyone felt it, and no one expected what the quiet nurse would do next. If you believe that kindness still matters, that second chances can change lives, and that even the softest voices can carry the loudest truth, take a moment right now to like, comment, share, and subscribe to the channel Ripple of Kindness. Your support helps stories like this reach hearts that need them. She had always been called the quiet nurse, not because she lacked thoughts or feelings, but because life had taught her that silence was safer. Years of working night shifts, absorbing blame that wasn't hers, watching tempers flare and egos dominate had trained her to keep her head down and her hands steady. She moved through the ER like a shadow, efficient and calm, the kind of nurse surgeons trusted with their patients but rarely noticed as a person. She carried her own private scars too, memories of a home where raised voices meant danger and where speaking up had consequences. So she learned to endure, to survive by staying invisible. The chief surgeon was everything she was not: loud, celebrated, feared. His reputation stretched beyond the hospital walls, praised for saving lives under pressure, excused for his temper because of his brilliance. The ER bent around him when he entered, staff stiffening, interns shrinking, nurses bracing themselves for whatever storm might come. That night the pressure was unbearable. A critical patient lay on the table, seconds mattered, alarms screamed, and mistakes felt unforgivable. When something went wrong, when his control slipped for just a moment, his rage searched for a target, and it landed on the quiet nurse. The yank of her hair wasn't just pain, it was exposure. It was the sudden realization that every unspoken fear she had ever buried was now on display under harsh white lights. She felt her face burn, her vision blur, her body tense with the instinct to apologize, to disappear, to make it stop. Around her, the ER froze. Some looked away, ashamed. Some stared, stunned. Some told themselves it wasn't their place. In that moment, silence threatened to win again. But something inside her shifted, not loudly, not explosively. It was a small, steady click, like a lock finally opening. She saw more than herself in that instant. She saw every nurse who had swallowed tears in supply closets, every intern humiliated into silence, every patient who trusted hands that were sometimes guided by fear instead of compassion. She felt the weight of her own worth, long ignored, press against her chest. And she realized that staying quiet this time would cost more than speaking ever could. She straightened slowly, reclaiming her balance, her dignity, her breath. Her heart pounded so hard it felt like it might crack her ribs, but her hands didn't shake. The room felt impossibly large and impossibly still. Every step she took forward felt like walking against a lifetime of conditioning, but she kept moving. The monitors kept beeping. The patient still needed care. Life, fragile and urgent, refused to pause for cruelty. What stunned the ER wasn't anger or revenge. It was clarity. It was composure. It was the way the quiet nurse chose the patient, the team, and herself all at once. She followed protocol with unwavering focus, documenting, signaling for assistance, ensuring the patient was stabilized without feeding the chaos. Her actions were calm but unyielding, a silent line drawn where none had existed before. Authority shifted in the room, not through volume but through integrity. Others felt it too. A junior nurse found her spine and stepped closer. An intern stopped pretending nothing had happened. A senior anesthetist met the nurse's eyes and nodded, a simple gesture that said, "You are not alone." The ER began to breathe again, but differently now, as if something old and toxic had been pushed out and something braver allowed in. The aftermath rippled outward. Reports were filed. Questions were asked. Stories that had lived in whispers finally found daylight. The chief surgeon's brilliance was no longer enough to shield him from accountability. Policies were revisited. Training was mandated. A culture that had protected power at the expense of humanity was forced, at last, to look at itself in the mirror. For the quiet nurse, the days that followed were heavy and uncertain. She feared backlash, isolation, being labeled difficult, but something unexpected happened. Colleagues thanked her in small, awkward ways. A patient's family squeezed her hand a little longer than necessary. Leadership listened. Not perfectly, not instantly, but genuinely. And inside her, a new steadiness took root. She was still quiet, still gentle, still focused on care, but she was no longer invisible to herself. She began mentoring new nurses, teaching them not just procedures but presence. She showed them that compassion includes compassion for oneself, that professionalism does not require enduring harm, that courage doesn't always roar. Sometimes it simply refuses to bend. The ER changed in subtle ways. People spoke up sooner. Tensions eased faster. Kindness, once seen as softness, became a strength others leaned on. Near the end of a long shift months later, she stood in the same ER, watching sunlight creep through high windows, and felt something close to peace. Not because everything was perfect, but because something essential had been reclaimed. Respect, safety, the quiet understanding that one moment of courage can echo far beyond itself. If this story touched your heart, if it reminded you that dignity matters and that even small acts of bravery can change an entire room, please take a moment to like, share, and engage with this video. Your interaction helps keep these stories alive and reaching those who need them most. And before the ending, we have a special request for you. Comment below with your thoughts or share a moment when you or someone you know chose courage over silence. Your words might be the encouragement someone else is waiting for. The quiet nurse never became loud. She never needed to. Her strength lived in the way she stood, the way she cared, and the way she proved that kindness and courage are not opposites but partners. And in one unforgettable moment under unforgiving lights, she showed an entire ER that respect is not demanded by force,